Hi, everyone. I'd like to start by quoting from a song. Dad and I talked a lot over the years about lyrics and poems that spoke to him, and it's a long list, but this one had a special place in our hearts. There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far, over land and sea. A little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he. And then one day, a magic day, he passed my way. And though we talked of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. It's hard to recite those words, but it's also a blessing. They're a bridge to a man who meant the world to me. Especially that last line: the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. Growing up, Dad had an incredible role model for what love is. His parents loved him, and his younger brother did what brothers do. But his Gamma and Pop were the stuff of legend. Pop in particular was Dad's personal hero. He wanted to be just like him. That's what the grandkids call him. Charley, by the way. It's not Grandpa, it's Pop. If Dad were up here, he'd want me to tell you how generous and kind his Pop was, how dedicated, about the time he surprised Dad with a handcrafted train set. But we're here to talk about our Pop. I think you'll see that he more than lived up to the name. Dad loved making people happy. He would say he got that from Pop. When you're a kid, that means you do very well in school, like graduating with honors from Cross Keys High, getting a bachelor's from MIT, and then a master's from University of Michigan. When you're an adult, you do that with a great career. An internship at ComShare turned into 40 years of a job that he adored. He was good at it, he liked doing it, and he was surrounded by people that brought out the best in him. He was one of those rare folks who felt sad about retiring because he enjoyed it so much. Dad loved games. I wouldn't call him an athlete, but he was the pitcher on his Little League team and became a decent bowler. He loved board games, crosswords, brain teasers, and Mad Libs. He played pinochle, cribbage, backgammon, Tetris, and Mario Brothers. He was a lifelong fan of watching baseball and even learned to like hockey. Dad loved to help. He volunteered at the food bank at St. Mary's as webmaster for the Union of Black Episcopalians and Chorales, and mailman for the U of M Gilbert and Sullivan Society. If you needed a ride, he'd drive you back home too. Ask for $1, he'd give you 20. But what I cherished the most was how well he listened. He always made you feel like the most important person. Your story was the most important story. Dad loved milk, vanilla ice cream, French onion soup, Dr. Pepper, and Catherine's cooking, so long as it didn't contain any cilantro. According to his best friend Simon, they would approach a restaurant, and Dad would say, "Well, I'm certainly going to spit that out." Dad loved a good one-liner. He constantly dropped them into conversation behind a mischievous smile. Dad loved art. His favorite pieces included paintings by his mother, Van Gogh, Magritte, Seurat. I remember visiting the Art Institute of Chicago together and staring at a Sunday on La Grande Jatte. Whenever I see that painting, it's like he's in the room with me. He also loved the recent Immerse Van Gogh exhibit, saying that it was one of the most powerful experiences he's ever had. Dad loved theater. He didn't get the acting bug, but he loved the experience, preferably from third row center. He and Catherine were regulars at the Black Music Theater of Phoenix, and before moving here, he was a huge fan of the Shaw Festival in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario. He'd do an annual pilgrimage and see 6 to 7 plays at a time. He loved their St. Joan so much, he did a day trip with my sister Tracy and me so we could see it. As Governor's Council donor, he dined with directors and took backstage tours. He drove cast members around when they did a performance at U of M. Professional actors would recognize him on the street and walk over to shake his hand. He stopped going after moving to Arizona, but we did one last father-daughter trip there in 2019, and it was just like old times. Dad loved film. His evening routine was a film or TV shows, often both. He had a massive collection of DVDs and videotapes that we'd watch together, often the same film twice, because the second time you have to watch it with the commentary track. Our conversations always involved recommendations of what to watch and what to skip. His bookshelf was full of Roger Ebert, tales from behind the scenes. He was a total movie nerd. Dad loved music. We asked friends to post memories on Facebook, and this was a definite theme. One person wrote, "So many memories, all of them musical." His favorite summer job was working at a record store. Piano was a lifelong friend. He sang in several choirs, St. Barnabas Episcopal Church in Atlanta, the University of Michigan Choral Union, North Valley Choir, Trinity Cathedral Choir. He attended countless concerts, from Michael Hedges to symphonies, to Peter Gabriel to Helios. He collected CDs, vinyls, and cassettes, which were constantly playing in the background. Dad would joke that life should come with a soundtrack, and I think he got close to making that happen. Dad loved traveling. He nearly got to all 7 continents. Some of his favorite experiences were the rainforest in Costa Rica, finding Chuck the Wombat in Tasmania, seeing Israel and the islands of Venice. He also had a special spot just down the road, the Red Rocks of Sedona. He'd walk down to the water, find a rock to sit on, close his eyes, and become so peaceful. And his peace would always help me find peace too. Last but not least, Dad loved his family. Earlier this year, before we knew how bad his lungs had gotten, he and I had this amazing heart-to-heart. We didn't know it would be our last. We just talked like that whenever we got together. We held hands, and he tearfully said that we mean the world to him. It was important to him then that we know that. And it's important now, too. And Catherine, his soulmate. Love isn't a big enough word. I can't begin to capture what you meant to him. Dad found his true love in you, and he was amazed that you felt the same way about him. You made him so happy, and I can never thank you enough. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return.